Tim brought this up earlier. A couple other people echoed the sentiment. Kurt Cobain, if he was still with us, would be 52 years old today. Kurt Cobain. A lot of you guys already know I'm a huge Nirvana fan. We've talked about Nirvana a number of times on this show. Nirvana really catapulted me into pretty much everything else musically. Like, Nirvana was the first thing I ever discovered on my own, really. Well, actually, I didn't discover it on my own. My aunt, my mom's younger sister, gave me a cassette tape of Unplugged in New York. That was the first Nirvana I heard. It was Unplugged in New York. And it blew my freaking mind. I just loved that cassette. I had it on cassette, and I listened to it over and over again until I wore out the cassette. Like, I just completely wore it out. And then I decided, well, I need to hear more of this band. And so I got Nevermind on cassette. And then I thought, holy shit. The first time I heard Nevermind, I never looked back. I just thought, wow, holy shit. And I got into Nirvana big time. I was 10 years old. Kurt Cobain had just died. I got into Nirvana like right after Kurt Cobain died. Literally right after he died. But, you know, what are you going to do? So I discovered most of the music that I still to this day celebrate by looking at Kurt Cobain's t-shirts. Kurt Cobain would wear all these t-shirts. So that's how I discovered who Black Flag was. That's how I discovered who Flipper was. That's how I discovered Dinosaur Jr. And I still love all those bands, and that's how I later got into 80s hardcore. That's how I later got into actual, you know, like 90s punk rock and skate punk and melodic punk rock, pretty much every genre of punk rock, which later led me to singer-songwriter, because that's what happens to punk rockers when you turn 26. You look into singer-songwriters. That led me to looking into Americana, satirical folk music. Now, all this also led me into getting really interested in politics, because punk rock talked about politics a lot. There you have it. And that's why I'm here. Boom. Boom. And you guys are bringing up some great people. Daniel Johnston. I've seen Daniel Johnston twice. Oh, and Inside Agitators, you're actually in Aberdeen, Washington. That's awesome. Aberdeen, Washington is where Kurt Cobain's from. The song Something in the Way, that's about a bridge in Aberdeen that folklore says Kurt Cobain used to live under that bridge. Now, some people say that's true. Some people say it wasn't. I guess we'll never know for sure. But allegedly, Kurt Cobain lived under that bridge in Aberdeen for a period of time. And it's still a bunch of... there's still, I believe, and Inside Agitators, maybe you can confirm this, there's still a bunch of like Kurt Cobain graffiti under there. You know, I never got to Aberdeen. I used to live in Seattle. I lived in Seattle for a couple years, and I never got to Aberdeen, Washington. One day, me and a couple of my buddies who were also diehard Nirvana fans, we were going to take a road trip and just have a day trip out to Aberdeen, and we didn't go because we didn't realize how far it was. We were all comics, so we all had shows later that night, so we had to be back in Seattle by, like, you know, dinner time or whatever. And we thought Aberdeen was closer than it was. So we ended up just going over to Bremerton, which is just a nice little island town that's a ferry ride away from Seattle. So anyway. Failed abortion. What's your opinion on Soundgarden and Chris Cornell? I like Soundgarden. I'm not a huge Soundgarden guy compared to some of the other music. I got into... I got into Nirvana, and then I grew into punk rock from there. Like, and some of the more like kind of grungy stuff from that era, even though grunge, all it is just like they took Black Sabbath, mixed it with punk, and, you know, started making some cool rock and roll music. But yeah, I never really got I was not as into I never got as into those other bands as much. But I do like Mudhoney, and I like, what are some other bands? And then I like some, like, I like Slater-Kinney. I like L7. I like a lot of the Riot Grrrl type stuff that was part of that era as well, kind of adjacent. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your